Good morning. My name is Karen Greer. I'm CEO of Secure Content Technologies, and I'm very honored to be here with Mike Jolley. He's a Senior Vice President at Securely. Good morning, Mike, and welcome.
Good morning, Karen. Thank you so much for having us here today.
Absolutely. We've done a number of these, and they've all been very informative to our audience. So the topic today is one that I think is on all of our minds and all of our schools' minds, and it's AI. And this topic is not going to go away anytime soon. It is here to stay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost every trade show I've been to the last, I'd say almost 2 years, every district conversation we've had, somehow goes there at some point. So you're absolutely correct. It's a massive topic on top of everyone's mind.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So the first question that I have for you, and it's top of mind for me, is how do you feel that AI is shaping school safety? Like, I feel like that whole landscape of AI is really involved in shaping school safety, and how do we get our heads around that one?
Yeah, rapidly, right? It's that's that word comes to mind. So AI is absolutely changing the landscape, and it's doing so really fast. And school districts are really working hard to stay in front of it. And I know that hasn't been easy for districts the last couple of years. Some of the things that come to mind, Karen, are real-time threat detection. So AI is being added into security systems, right? Think cameras, sensors. They're doing that to be able to monitor for potential threats like weapons, violence, things that happen during emergencies. Systems can analyze video feeds, sensor data. They can spot unusual behaviors or objects, right? Alert staff immediately. Some districts have been installing AI gun detection systems, right? They overlay existing camera systems. They can send real-time alerts to security teams. So all those things are there, right? And, the goal of all those tools is to really help reduce response times when there is a critical moment, something going on. And, again, they use them to support like lockdowns, notifications, and emergency. But in the case of Securely, right, and the non-physical safety, AI is really helping monitor online activity. AI is not new for us, Karen. As you know, we've talked about it, a little bit before in our conversations, and Securely's been using AI for over a decade. And we've done that to review student activity when we review activity for bullying, for self-harm, for violence. AI has been really helpful for us over the years. It really helps us and has gotten a lot better, especially with the enhancements the last couple of years, in reducing false positives, as well as really, flagging or highlighting items that may have been missed if you were simply looking at keywords. Karen, let me give you an example, right? Think about a student email and it says, "I can't take this anymore. I want to end it all." Very powerful statement. Again, "I can't take this anymore. I want to end it all." But it doesn't have a word like, doesn't say kill, doesn't say die, doesn't say suicide, kill myself, those very specific detailed words and phrases, they're not present. But there is certainly some concerning sentiment in that message of, "I can't take this anymore. I want to end it all." And a caring professional at the school should definitely be aware of that type of message from the student.
I agree with you, absolutely. So when you look at students using AI, that brings a whole nother element to this AI discussion. And maybe we could talk about what the risks of that are, right? Because the kids, you can't stop them, really.
Right, absolutely, right. They're going to use it one way or the other, whether it's on the school device or their own device. It's it's here. It's real interesting, Karen. When I think back to like late 2022, 2023, when ChatGPT was brand new coming on the scene. And Securely is the content filter to 20% plus of students in the U.S. We serve total across our solutions 20 million students. So about 40% of K-12 is using us, a little over 20% to provide their content filtering. And regarding the content filter, we had hundreds of requests come in during a very short time period. And those requests were all block ChatGPT, block it fully, block it now. And, our response is, first, we don't block anything, right? We categorize things, and then we give the districts the ability to make that decision of whether or not they want to block things. But, Karen, as we got those requests, it was very interesting because we got so many. We asked questions, right? We wanted to know more. And really, as we asked why, the responses were very consistent. Teachers are pushing hard, to get it blocked due to cheating, privacy concerns, mistrust of the companies, providing the AI tools. And then, the last one is kind of just the general unknowns of what information that AI is actually going to provide to the students. So, Karen, now that we've seen a couple years of its use and it's getting heavier and heavier, it's really clear that there are some different categories when it comes to risk, right? Of course, we don't condone cheating. Cheating on schoolwork's definitely a concern that's there. But what we're seeing is we're seeing AI feel much more human, and we're seeing that happen rapidly. And we're seeing kids conversing with AI, and even having conversations about their mental health, even trying to make friends with it. And so, with so many platforms that are now incorporating AI capabilities, the risk that schools are facing when it comes to missing signals about who needs help becomes greater and greater, because there's more data points, but those data points may be in areas in which the schools don't have visibility. So while schools and these tools, these new AI tools that are coming on the scene, while they're trying to help, they're not student safety focused, and their ability to really bubble up concerns accurately and quickly, it's just not going to be as accurate or as fast as a company like Securely, because we have been doing that, and specifically that, for millions of students for over a decade. One of the other risks, Karen, is transparency for teachers. We look at the information that students are inputting, we look at the conversations they're having, and those things can really be a black box. And we've heard that from teachers, technology leaders, district leaders at the cabinet level. Again, that black box, or it's a mystery, or it's something, we can't see. Those are the themes over and over when it comes to how the district. So they know that they're using AI, right? We have, Magic School and School AI, and right, lots of different tools that we know we're utilizing, but it's specifically how. What are the students doing in them? What are they saying? And how are we making sure that's safe? And so, honestly, there's been kind of a blind spot. And anytime there's a blind spot, Karen, we're going to see some risk. So I know I just said a lot of words, like kind of sum it up. AI, it's definitely become part of daily life in school. And when you're looking at blocking it entirely, you're only going to put students behind. Or, as you mentioned, at the start of this conversation, Karen, they're going to use it on their own. So what we want to focus on is knowing that with the right guardrails, AI can really improve writing, tutoring, research, and creativity, which I think are all wins for schools.
I think so too. So I think one of the things, Securely is an amazing student safety, student well-being tool. How do you help schools kind of balance the issue of students using AI and also being concerned about their safety and their well-being? Like, Securely is really just out of the box amazing at tackling this whole topic.
Thank you. And, Securely has always done a balancing act, right? Whether it's, now we're looking at AI and safety and well-being. And, again, when we were coming on the scene with monitoring, and as more and more companies were starting to do that, there was a concern of where does student privacy end, right? Where does safety? What's that balance? So I feel like we have, I'm confident that Securely has done a really good job of finding that balance. And I also think we're finding a really nice balance when it comes to AI, as you mentioned, and when asking where the balance is between student safety and well-being. So, I heard somebody say this is mine. I wish I could remember who, but it's like walking a tightrope. That's what they feel like in a district right now. Most districts, they're not asking the question, should we use AI or not, right? That ship has sailed. That's not what they're asking. What they're really asking is, how do we use it without harming kids? How do we use it, intentionally? How do we use it and make sure that we're getting the outcomes we want while, keeping kids safe? So in other words, what they really want to know is, how can districts bring AI into the district? How can they do it safely? How can they do it responsibly? And how can they do it with purpose? A lot of districts we've talked to said they feel as if they're flying blind on how the tools are being used, like we mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And again, they have a basic idea, but what they don't have is really detailed insight into the usage. So when it comes to balancing, there are a few things that districts can do, right? So one, when you're looking at balancing, you can ensure that human judgment stays in the loop, right? The human judgment piece is going to be there. It's going to help prevent overreaction. It's going to prevent misinterpretation. And again, one of the biggest concerns about AI is that it's going to be allowed to act alone. There's even legislation. I think I've looked at pending legislation, and I want to say Washington State, where, they're specifically, saying that AI can't be the sole source of an action for a student, or even a classification for a student. So again, we know these things are very important, very top of mind. AI tools flag concerns, right? They can, academic struggles, safety risks, mental health signals, but ultimately you have to have humans decide what to do next, right? That's one key to balance. So you use AI to get the information, but the humans have to make the ultimate decision. Prioritizing mental health and well-being is another key to the balance. And even teaching students about AI itself very important to educate the students and the staff, for that matter, as there's a lot of information, there's a lot of misinformation about AI, and so again, the whole thing is really teaching everyone, all the stakeholders, even parents, about AI itself and capabilities and risks and dangers. And then I'd say the last part to that, Karen, when it comes to balancing, is really making sure that the district has clear policies on use and transparency about the AI.
So I've seen and heard many stories firsthand of securely helping to identify a situation where a student may have potentially harmed himself or others. And I'm wondering if you would be kind enough to share an example of something that you've had happen with securely being able to solve that.
Absolutely. And to be clear, again, when I said we mentioned we serve millions of schools or school students, 7,000 districts. And with that, data privacy is massively important. And we don't ask, right? We don't come back and say, what happened here, what was but we know districts are, they're so excited that they're able to intervene and they're able to provide, real help in a dangerous situation because of securely. So sometimes they will reach out and again, protecting students' identity, but make sure that, we're aware of the situation and that our tool is able to help a student. So, yes, as a simple answer to your question, unfortunately, we see situations every single day where we have to intervene in things. And, as we're talking about specifically AI, I want to start with an example of what a student put into a chat. And verbatim, where I quote, "I haven't slept in 4 days. I want to hurt myself, kinda, but I don't know what to do. I'm so lonely. I really want to bring this up to a person I've been meaning to talk to. IDK, man, I'm so tired of people, of my parents, of everything." So again, that is a student literally inputting that into an AI chat, to a chat bot, to get a response. So as I mentioned earlier, as AI is getting more human and students are looking at it, even more for beyond answers, but for companionship and to be a confidant that they can, talk to. That's, I think, a very powerful, unfortunate example, but these are things we're seeing more and more of. Another one along the lines of AI is, here's a student prompt. "Write me a paragraph on how to tell my mom I'm having suicidal thoughts." So I know there's a lot to unpack about that. Obviously, the students in grade, is struggling, right? And the district needs to be aware of that. But that's when it really goes back to AI being a black box and transparency and being able to see. So one, when you're looking at AI tools, are you confident as a district that your AI tool can alert, can catch things like that? And then, make sure the right people know about those things, but you're also redirecting that student in real time, giving that student some helpful information instead of just saying, one, we don't want them to answer that. We know there's been some heavy criticism. We know there's been lawsuits where students have, used AI, conversational AI to attempt to learn how to die by suicide. And one, we certainly don't want that answer, but you also don't want to just not say anything. So one of the, I think, powerful things about Securely with our native AI chat that districts can use as an overlay, it will redirect them and it will give them, here's some resources. Looks like you need help. You should talk to an adult. So it's very powerful that you don't just, block it or ignore it. It's important of how you respond to those things when students are asking. And I'll do one more, Karen, the last example. The first two were very specific, prompting, conversational AI. This is both. So this was a student that over a 5-minute period was switching between internet searches and an AI tool, right? So the search, how to not feel pain. Next search, how to not feel pain when cut. Next search, how to not feel pain when cut, but letting it bleed. What is a main nerve in the forearm? What nerve near the wrist carries blood? Again, rattled those searches off, and you can see the first three getting more specific as they, clearly weren't maybe getting the answers or enough specificity that they wanted. And then the AI prompt that followed those searches immediately. If you want to commit suicide, what do you do? So again, heartbreaking, right? We've talked a lot. I'm a parent. I have 2 teenage daughters. I was a high school principal, assistant principal for, close to 10 years. And even at Securely, right? Student safety is paramount. It's our sole mission as an organization. And so to know that there are kids that are struggling so much, and this is where they're turning, that's why it's so powerful, because they are going to use it. To your point, Karen, I know we're going to beat that to death, but they are going to use it. And so when they're using it, let's make sure they are able to use it, if they need to at school, but that there are those monitoring things in place that are going to let the right people know. Because again, these are 3 real examples over a very recent time period that we've seen of students who are really struggling.
Oh, and those examples always kind of give me chills because they are real, and they're so terribly tragic and sad. Do you feel like the AI is able to help a student faster, like help identify a student that needs help faster than the way it used to be? Right?
Absolutely faster, right? I mean, that's one of the things is, one of the differentiators and advantages we've talked about for years and years at Securely. At one point when we were the only one in our space using AI, and then now as it's got better, but essentially, AI is what powers our proactive approach, and allows us to, again, like you said, to intervene, to be more proactive. And let me explain some details, right? Talk about how it works. So one, our AI, it's going to scan for early warning signs. So again, Securely's AI engine is going to analyze the activity on the school issued device. It's going to look at things like, the searches, the documents, emails, AI chats. And what we're doing is we're looking for patterns that are associated with risk. And those patterns are things like, again, patterns around self-harm, ideation, threats, bullying, signs of emotional distress. And so, as I mentioned, instead of keying on a single word like die or kill or suicide, the AI that we use is looking for context, frequency, escalation over time. And when I say time, we actually assign a wellness level to every student in a district. And that district, wellness level is based on not just a single event. Again, we don't want to just look at one moment in time or point. We're looking at a rolling 60 days of student history to make that determination. And we know without AI, we couldn't do that. And with AI, we are able to do it, and we're able to do so very importantly. So number two, second part of the piece is really that contextual understanding, and having that contextual understanding really reduces noise, right? So one of the challenges with safety monitoring is false alarms, right? False positives. And we're really designed to differentiate between academic content, meaning researching mental health for a class, right? And differentiating that between personal stress. Again, I was a teacher before I, was an administrator, and, you look at things that every kid is still going to learn. You look at Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, sex and suicide and murder. And, there's a lot of literary themes, or, things like To Kill a Mockingbird. So there's titles, there's themes, there's subjects, there's things that there are absolute educational purpose for. And what we really have been able to do with AI for a decade and get really better the last 18 to 24 months on is pulling those things out, right? Making sure we can separate academic content and know when there's personal distress. And again, you can also use AI to weigh multiple signals together, right? And that allows us also to continuously refine models based on real world school environments. And doing so is really going to help schools focus attention where it's needed rather than overwhelming. It's when districts say, no, we don't, there are districts that don't have any type of monitoring. They don't have us, they don't have a competitor. And it's just, we don't want to be inundated. We're not 24-hour employees. And I absolutely understand that, fully understand the need, because, there's a perception that if we have this on, we're going to get stuff every minute, in a large school or a large district. And so one of the things that we do to help with that is the third point is human review. Right? At Securely, we have a team of humans. Human review is absolutely part of the equation. And that really helps ensure that AI doesn't act alone. So when high risk behavior is detected by the AI, these alerts come in and they're verified, they're reviewed by our trained human safety specialists. And then what that trained human safety specialist is going to provide is actionable, prioritized alerts to the school, not just a raw data dump. So educators, not algorithms, are deciding how to respond to things. And that is very important. And so that human in the loop design is really key to protecting student well-being and avoiding kind of overreaction from a system like ours and providing too many things. And then the last 2 points. So 4 is faster intervention, which I'm, again, very fast. Our average last school year was 5 minutes for responding from Securely to a critical alert. When I say that, based on the students' generated data, our analysts feel that the student is in danger of harming themselves or others in the next 24 to 48 hours. And again, that average time is 5 minutes. And so they're looking at those examples I gave you earlier and seeing, do we see patterns? Is this, research? Is it homework? Is it normal activity? Or is this, nope, this is something that we can determine students going down the rabbit hole. We need to get them help ASAP. And then the last piece of that is really a theme for us, focus on care and support, not punishment. One of the things that I'm really proud Securely does is we position our AI safety monitoring as wellness and prevention, not disciplinary, right? Again, let me say that again, Karen, because it's very important for us, right? We position our AI safety monitor as a wellness and prevention tool, not a disciplinary tool. Again, we want these things routed to counselors, student support teams, so they can be proactive.
That is a massively important point. And of all the ones that you made, they were all great. I think the trained human specialist is game changer.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way you position this is absolutely stellar and a key point. Like, the kids can't feel as though they're being punished. Then where do they go, right? Exactly. If they can't go to adults and humans for help, where do they go?
Exactly.
Yeah. So student safety doesn't just stop at the school door, right? So how has that changed your approach to protection with the Securely portfolio when they're not in the classroom?
It absolutely doesn't stop, at the classroom or the school door. It's one of the, I think, unique things about Securely, about a cloud-based filter when it was introduced, 13, 14 years ago. And it's being able to provide this monitoring outside of school hours. So it's able to provide this safety on the school device, regardless of location, regardless of time of day. If the kid's at, grandma's house at 3 p.m. on Sunday and they're expressing, ideation or grief or self-harm, all those things, right? We're able to see that. So one of those things is, again, being able to look at it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The other is being able to have that accurate AI so you can know when to alert. So there's less alerts. And when you can say, look, for every 10,000 students, we're going to send 5 extreme alerts per school year. That really gives districts, when they're making decisions, it gives them the peace of mind to say, you know what, this isn't going to inundate us. This isn't going to desensitize us. This is going to give us exactly, what we need. And we look at data, we have some districts where we see 40 to 50% of their, flagged is what we internally, flagged activity that comes for grief, depression, violence. 40 to 50% of that happens outside of school hours. And as a school district, why would you want to miss half of the information that you could have when you're trying to build that overall picture of wellness and be proactive, be preventative, see who needs that help. So again, the ability to expand beyond the classroom and to have that safety net 24 hours a day, to have all those data points, but also, again, have the ability not to call the school administrator at 3 a.m., right? I cared about kids 24/7. I'm not going to be the one most likely to answer that call at 3 a.m. And even if I did, what am I going to do? Right. I'm not going to personally go to the student's house. I'm going to turn around and call somebody. So we take that middle step out and make sure we're going straight to the source, right where the district wants to know, whoever they partner with in their community that can do a welfare check, that can go, make sure that things are okay.
Well, and I also think that this gives parents and schools a way to work together where they didn't have any of these tools before to work together, because at the end of the day, the parent really has to be massively involved so that the child can get help.
Yeah. And Karen, the parent can't be involved if they don't know.
Right.
That's I think that's the simplest way to say it. And, Securely released something back in the fall of 2016. We were the first in our space to do a parent app. And provide the filtering information to parents. I can remember being at, I want to say it may have been ISTE or a regional conference back in 2016. We had a couple districts that were doing the beta for this. They were getting the information via email and sending reports to parents. And, we were approached by someone. They said, y'all are nuts. There's no district is going to want this. Nobody's going to want to open up, that Pandora's box of showing parents what their students are searching and sites they're visiting, attempting to visit, what they're accessing. And we thought differently. And I think the proof is in the pudding now that we have millions of parents that are using our app, getting our weekly, the weekly email sent to them. We know that almost all of our competitors have some type of parent solution now that they're offering. So for us, like our tools are really able to help parents be partners, right? You want authentic engagement. You hear that all the time. How do we authentically engage our parent community? Well, transparency. show them what their kids are doing and learning. And, parents, it's not about a gotcha. It's not about, oh, your kid tried to go to, DraftKings and gamble during school, right? Your kid tried to do, was trying to go to games all day long. It's more about giving the parents the information so they can parent, right? Most parents, come from a good place. They want to help their kids. They want to converse with their kids. They just don't know how to start it. Karen, I'm a self-proclaimed, curriculum nerd. I love teaching and learning. When I was I get my daughters in the car. Girls, what you learned today? I'm so excited, to know. And Karen, I kid you not, they look me dead in the face. Nothing, Dad. They didn't do anything. And I know I'm not the only one, that does that. And so, our parent app gives parents not only the ability to see the safety alerts, right, the concerning stuff, which is important, but it also lets them just see what their kids are learning and doing so they can help support it, so they can start conversations. I've told this story for years. It was actually from our beta group. We had some parents give us feedback and tell us anecdotes. And, we had a mom who was just raving like, I saw her search for Joan of Arc and I asked her about that. And we had this great conversation about strong women in history and women leaders. And, she was just, so excited to give us that feedback, which she would not have had, something her daughter probably wouldn't have said. We learned about Joan of Arc today in history class. So we've opened that up. We've also opened it up where, we've had parents reach out and say, look, I asked my daughter if she was okay. And she said she's great. But then I see her searching for, how do I lose weight? How do I get an eating disorder? Why don't I have friends? I mean, heartbreaking stuff, right? And now, the mom's, when she's recapping this to us is like, why didn't you say anything? Clearly the kid wasn't going to tell her, and then, the mom, she's like, the student's like, I'm being bullied, Mom. This group of girls is picking on me. And, so again, exposing all the above, right? What their academic interests are, maybe their non-academic interests, also student safety concerns. So that's what's been powerful. And we love to see that more and more districts are using that. And how this relates to AI, and we talk about transparency being key to AI safety. We are very, very soon going to be releasing the ability for districts to have the option to open up those conversations to parents as well. So just like a parent could see a search, why am I bad at math? Like that's one of my joke, go back to a funny search that we had parents talk to us about from their kids. But then they can also see, some of those examples I gave earlier about, wanting to hurt myself or those other stuff. We can expose all those things, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, not just to the district, which is important that they see, but also to the parent, so they can authentically partner. Parents in the districts have a vested interest in that kid's mental health and well-being and success. And the best way to partner for that is having information and being transparent. And our parent piece does that and does it really well. And we're going to continue to add to it.
That's fabulous. I can't wait for that to come out. And, I think back to when I was raising mine. How was your day? It was fine. It was fine, right? And that's just a small, like, itty bitty point, but there was so much more that I didn't know that I wished I had known, because usually it became like, you don't know till there's a problem. And maybe you can head that off gently in a different way if you actually do know that they're upset about something, or they're being bullied. Like that's a point that I have no tolerance for. The bullying piece
it's huge, and there's a lot of different research you look at, but one of the trends is a lot of students never report it, and there's a variety of reasons. I remember one is so sad, they don't want their mobile devices taken away. Because the parent can't get it stopped at school, or they can't get it stopped in the, the community or the group of friends or wherever it's from. So look, the other answer is, let me just take your, let me ban you from Instagram or TikTok, or let me, and so there are kids who are enduring this suffering because they don't want to lose their lifeline, right? Because they feel so hopeless that it's going to stop the other way. So again, not to continue to bring the conversation down to those depressing things, Karen, but that's the reality that kids are dealing with.
That is absolutely the reality. And it's not lessening at all. It's increasing. And I've seen a lot of that just from the schools that we work with. So if there's one thing that school leaders and parents should understand about AI and student safety right now, what do you think that is?
Yeah, I think they should understand that they don't have to wait for tools. I think that's I would say, if I could say one thing to districts and parents at the same time, it would be, look, you don't have to wait. There are threats, there are risks with AI, but you don't have to wait for things for tools to come out that you can use to help make sure they're safe and create safer AI use. They exist, right? There are tools that are out. There are several that Securely has that we've just talked through, that will help them support it and help them know and help them have transparency. Because, Karen, when I try to look, in my crystal ball, when I try to look ahead, 3 to 5 years, what's school safety going to look like, and how might that kind of shock, districts today or parents or people. And, what I think, Karen, is if we fast forward, school safety is, I think, going to look a lot less like metal detectors and more like early support systems. And I think that shift is going to surprise a lot of people. And look, I am not saying that we won't have physical safety, not saying there won't be metal detectors and wands and cameras, and there's always going to be a need and a place for those. But my bet is that's not where the emphasis will need to be in order to truly make a difference from a school safety standpoint. Safety is going to be quieter. It's going to be earlier. And I think the biggest surprise is going to be fewer visible security moments and more through tools like Securely, behind the scenes prevention. And, the future measure of success is not going to be what happened and how we handled it. It's going to be what didn't happen.
Oh, absolutely, it is. That's a fabulous way to look at it. And I'm excited about the next 3 to 5 years. For early support systems is key. I love that approach much better than a heavy hand, right? This is about supporting and having empathy for each other and really, really, really supporting the students. What a great conversation, Mike. And for all of our listeners, we're gonna have another session shortly about all the Securely solutions. So stay tuned for that. It'll be short and sweet, but it's something I think you all are going to want to see because it's a game changer. Mike, thank you. Always love our conversations. Student safety and wellness is near and dear to my heart, and something a big part of secure content and what we do with K-12. And we are honored to be partnered with Securely.
And we likewise are honored to be partnered with you, Karen, and thank you for your unwavering commitment to student safety.
100%. Thank you.